welcome back. So in this video a viewer asks, how do you come out of the closet as a medium? I'm a closet medium and I don't know how to make it relatable to normal people. Any advice on how to do this? So that's what we're going to be talking about in this video. For me it was, and I can only give my account because it's the way I've done it. I don't know how else you're going to do it. My personality is very different to the viewer that asks, so we have to implement it in the way that we can incorporate within our everyday life. And so for me, when I first started, I very much hid the fact, I'm off to circle and all that kind of. I remember having to travel a good 35 minutes initially by car to a spiritual church where hopefully I didn't know anyone that attended or lived in the area, because I didn't want my friends knowing about me doing this mediumship stuff or that spiritual stuff. I didn't want my mates knowing about that. With my circumstances that surrounded my background, that was the last thing I needed to be out in the public domain, that Charlie's doing this spiritual kind of stuff. So it was very slow for me in releasing this information. And slow, I mean over a few months. I don't mean years and years and years. It was over a few months. And I'm someone that reverse engineers everything, So let's take something simple like open, close, and protection. And so when I'm working with the spirit world, this essence, love, and communicating from loved ones, I've reversed engineered what they meant by open, close, and protection. I was like, why am I protecting? So I would go and ask people, and it was all this fear-based stuff. And so I reverse engineered it. Love essence. It's always the loved one of someone in the room. Why am I so worried about this? That I took a back seat from it. And so I started explaining my process. Why would I do this? And open and close, it's just a thought process which will open my mind to the idea, and then I go back to my day job which would close the idea. Reverse engineer it. So I had answers. So when someone very naively or just as part of a group started the attack as such, I had very simple answers to give them, to throw back at them, to give them something to think about. Now, I would never get angry. That was one thing I was immediately aware of. I don't have to prove this to you. Was step one. It's something that I know is there through my perception, and we just perceive the world differently. So you do your thing, I'll do my thing. Let's just go about our day, and you go your way and I'll go mine, and end of story. So I never felt like I needed to defend myself in that aspect. But what happened, there was this one story that always sticks in my mind, and I'm sure I've shared it on the channel at some point before. I worked in a factory environment. There was 40 plus men in that environment. And news broke that I did this, where did you go last night? Oh, I went to a spiritual centre, blah, blah, blah. And slowly it starts to come out, and slowly the ridicule starts to happen on an increasing level. And I remember them asking me about God. What is God then? Why do you think this? Why do you think that? And I would give my interpretation of my God. I would give my interpretation of my relationship with the spirit world. And they would ridicule me, and they would laugh, and they would just challenge me on a daily basis. In hindsight, this was a wonderful thing to happen to me, because it gave me my foundation and my philosophy for when I went on to be a teacher, which I had no idea I was going to do. So back to the story, and there was this one guy that every now and again he would pipe up, your God's sick, your God, why would he do this, why would he do that, and so on and so forth. And I just wouldn't buy it. There'd be times where I'd try and explain, and it wouldn't sit well, so the ridicule would start again, and then I'd walk off, and the following day it would happen. It'd become a very regular occurrence. And then about a year later, it was quite some time, so I'd gone through a year of ridicule, and about a year later, I saw this one guy, and he looked devastated. And I was like, oh my God, what's happened to his world? He looks pale. He don't look like he slept all night. There's something wrong. So I said to him, "Are you okay? Is everything all right?" And he went on to explain that one of his children were in hospital and they were very sick. To which he then said, "I just sat up all night asking, like, please God, like, don't take my child." And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. What do you mean, God? You've ridiculed me for the last year on God, and now you're sitting at home because you need something. You're gonna ask God for help, and yet you've denounced him for the last year. You've ridiculed him or her for the last year through my words, and here you are now reflecting and asking that same God for help. To which it started to change the dynamic of that office, of that place, of that factory setting, where they now were curious, and because they were curious and I was giving sensible answers through reverse engineering what I had learned through my relationship with the spirit world, they started to leave me alone. They started to sort of, you see them go away and think, and that's what I saw my job as. Just plant a seed, let that seed grow in its own way, and then once they got another question, they'd come back and they'd ask me, and I'd find another way of saying it. And so gradually it started to work for me. It started to stop the ridicule. It was more curiosity rather than take the piss out of this guy. And because I had this environment, this setting, it was every day, like 40 plus guys just mocking, to then maybe 10 of them being curious, to then 20 of them being curious, to then people just accepting it. So at this point, I decided to own mediumship. And that was the turning point for me. You really, really... you've got to get it in your head. It's like you're part of it or you're not. You can't sit on the fence at one point of the day and then sit on another fence in the evening. So I started to own the mediumship. And what I mean by that is that it wasn't a belief anymore, it was a knowledge. And because it was a knowledge, I had more questions. I would then go find more answers. So then people, when they asked me, I could answer in a relatable way to them. So those people that have sat in my classroom or sat on my Zoom class stroke workshops, when someone asks me a question, I give them an answer in a way that relates to their world. Because I have an understanding of the mechanic or an understanding of the process, I can then deliver the package, the wording, in a way that relates to them. So, like, my family are very skeptical. They tend to leave me alone with it unless they have a question. But because I know their background and I know their story, I know the best way to approach it. And this happens more and the more I do it, the more and more variations I have of the same answer, because I'm working in so many ways, giving this answer to so many different stories or perceptions that bring the question forward. So I find this relatable way that happens throughout the classroom, throughout the public, throughout like-minded people. I have this ability now, through years and years of practice, of being able to give a simple answer to them and their perception. So the moment I start owning it, it gives me a new confidence. It gives me a new way of thinking. I'm not hiding from it anymore. And because I'm not hiding from it anymore, it gives me the luxury, I suppose, to explore it a little bit more. So now I can go on any workshop, any residential. I know the right way to ask the question or sit with my team and try and let them give me the idea. And because of this, I now have more and more answers to give, which opens the door for more and more questions, or certainly more and more depth to the question that I have. So the way that I would do it is slowly introduce it to the like-minded people, to the viewer that asks me. Find ways of giving answers that don't sound mystical. It was the whole reason I started the channel. It was the whole background, my ethos to who I am, and making this normal. And the moment you can do that in a relatable way, people will start taking you seriously. If you are sitting there talking about the weird and wonderful stories that we have all heard, every single one of us have heard it. Maybe we've even been part of it. But now that you're more educated, or you have a greater understanding, you now see beyond that. And because of that, you become more relatable. People will start listening to advice or reason from the way that you are packaging the information that you are offering. I would suggest don't fight for the spirit world, don't fight the corner for them, because the moment you engage in an argumentative way, you're going to lose that argument, because they'll always reflect back to the myths or the what people have used as the argument forever. They'll just go straight back to that. So you've got to do it in a kind of way that makes them think. Get them thinking about their story, their world, their reality, their perception, and then introduce the spirit world in amongst that will give them food for thought. And then that way you can be a little bit more comfortable in doing it. You haven't got to come out and say, I am a medium. You haven't got to do that. Take baby steps. You know, I'm embarking on a new journey. I'm embarking on a spiritual journey. I'm looking into mediumship or communication. I'm looking into metaphysics. Whatever it'll be, find words that are easier than saying, I talk to dead people. Because that's when you lose your audience. And that audience is a person, a room, a group, a workplace, whatever it is. So you need to make it relatable in language that they understand. And the moment you can start getting that across, now you'll feel like you own it a little bit better. You'll be a little bit more confident in saying, this is what I do, this is what I'm into, this is what I like doing in my spare time, or all of that kind of stuff. So you've got to make it relatable for the people that you are offering it to. I never sit down and just say it. You know, oh, by the way, I'm a medium. It's a very egotistical way to come out with it. Usually it'll end up in a conversation. You know, I would just recently been away, and I was sitting with a group of 6 people, and 4 of them had described their job and what they do back in their hometowns and cities. And so naturally the conversation then swung to me. Okay, Charlie, so what is it you do? And I own it. You know, I'm a medium at that point, or I'm a teacher, a spiritual teacher, mediumship. I do mediumship, and I offer it, and immediately it will kill the conversation, or there'll be intrigue, and they'll go, "What's that then?" And then you can go into the process of what it is. And I always just say it's an intelligent communication. It's always evidence and it's always essence. And then in this process, because I'm making it relatable rather than mystical, I'm special, I've been chosen, check me out. Now they'll have their questions, they'll have their fears, they'll have their, I thought it was like this, or I thought it was like that. And now you're embarking on a normal conversation. It is very normal. Mediumship is very normal. So make it sound normal. Don't make it that you've been handpicked, you're the golden child in any way. Make it sound very, very normal, and it'll be accepted like anything else. Like you said, you were a plumber or a carpenter, or I work as a sales assistant. I work in mediumship, and it'll just be as easily accepted. It's when the people that are in the community have made it sound ridiculous, beyond reach, they are special, this magical experiences that only they can experience. That's when we lose our audience. So hopefully you can take something from this, to the viewer that asked the question. I won't name you because you're in the closet and I don't want to make it awkward for you. But like it if you liked it, get in the comments, as always. Subscribe if you aren't already, and I'll see you all in the next video.